Hi guys and welcome back. This is Jamie from System22 and Great Web Design. Here's the third part in our Builder one-page scrolling bootstrap series. In the last video we added our favicon and title and went through the index.html. In this one we're going to start to style our navbar here. Now this is a fixed navbar, so it stays at the top when we scroll here. And it's got what they call a navbar brand, which is just this lettering here. You can either put your own writing in or you can add a logo. Every time you click on this, it'll bring people back to the top of the page. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to want to do, actually before we get started, I'm using Google Chrome here, my browser, and I suggest you do the same if you want to follow along. Okay, so we've got our folder with our bootstrap files in it here. We want to go to the CSS folder and we want to open up the scrolling nav. So I'm just going to right click on it and open it with Brackets. Brackets is the free text editing software we've been using. If you don't have it, there's a link to it below. It's free. Please download it if you need to follow along with this. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we'll edit this and put your own legending in there. So if we go to back to the brackets and go to our index.html file, if we scroll down, here we go, on line 47 here, it says Start Bootstrap. You can put your own company name in there. And we'll just do a quick save, Control S, back to the site. And if we do a refresh, now that should say my company. And what we can do, we can change this, you can change the color and the size of it if you need to. If we just hit the inspector, right click and hit inspect, select what you actually want to change there, which in this case is this, and you see as I mouse over it, the blue line there, it highlights it up the top. And if we look here, if we want to make that bigger on a navbar brand here, at the moment it's a font size of 18 pixels. Say we want it to be 25 pixels. Just left click and highlight that. And type your new number in there. And as you see, that's got bigger. We can make it bigger again. Okay, so we made it bigger, and if you want a different color, just up the top here, navbar default, navbar brand, it's got the color in there, and you can put in whatever color. You can use a hex color like what we've got here, or you can just put in red or green or blue or whatever it is the color that you want to use that works for your company. And as you can see, that's changed that to a red color. To make, at the moment, if we hit that refresh button, this will all go back to how it was. What I'm going to do is, when you're editing CSS with Chrome here, just get yourself a little notepad, and when you've made your changes, just copy from the beginning of the dot to the end of that closing curly bracket there. Control C to copy, or right click and copy, however you like to do it. And just paste it into your notepad, because we'll be putting this into our CSS file later on to keep it permanent. And again, we've changed this, we've changed the size of the font. And what you want to remember, just copying that, we only need to enter the new settings that we've got. So we didn't change the float, the height, or the padding, or the line height here. So all we need is the font size. So here we've got our changes that we've just made here. If we go back to our brackets, before I do that, what I'll do is to show you, this is This is non-destructive. Everything we've done here, once we hit this refresh button, it'll revert back to how it was. Now to make it stay permanent, we need to put that into our CSS file. So if we open our brackets, go to our scrolling nav CSS file here, let's start down at the bottom. When you make an entry for a certain section of your page, it's always a good idea to give it a title. That way you can find it a lot easier if you've got a lot of CSS to scroll through. So if you do / / go back, and in the middle just give it a title. I'm going to call this navbar, so that we know anything below this line is our navbar CSS. Now I'm going to drop down a couple of lines, get my notepad here, select it all and copy it, Control C, and Control V, paste it in there. Now when you do your CSS, you always want to make sure that you've got everything. You always want to make sure there's an opening and closing curly bracket. That's really important. And if you've got more than one entry in there or attribute, you want to make sure you've got a semicolon after it. Okay, so we pasted that in there. Let's do a save. As you can see, there's a little dot up there, which means we haven't saved it. So Control S to save, or up to File and Save. Now when we go back to this site and refresh, this should change back to being that nice big red My Company logo. There it is. But having said that, that's not what I really want to do here. This is if you don't have a logo. You can just put your company name in there or what have you. I've actually got a logo I'm going to put in there, so I'm going to just quickly go back to the brackets here and delete that bit of CSS that we just put in there. I'll leave the title because we're going to be using it again. Do a quick save and come back. Refresh that, it should go back to how it was. For anybody that doesn't have a logo and you want a logo for your company, sites like Fiverr.com, you can get a pretty good logo done for just $5, so it's something to bear in mind there. Okay, if we go back to our folder with our files in it, and here's that image folder we created last time. I've got a logo that I've created and I'll pull it over into there. So here's my little logo I've created. I'm just going to pull it into our image folder. Now I've just called mine logo. Really descriptive, exciting name. Now to pull this into our site here, we want to go back to our brackets, to the HTML file this time, not the CSS. And if we go down to the page brand where we put in our company name just now, right here, My Company, what we'll do is we'll just delete that. I've got to put a new entry in, and it's pulling the image in much like we did with the favicon in the last video there. So if I just do that, IMG is the standard Bootstrap for pulling an image in, and SRC, spelled that wrong there, M, source equals, and we want a couple of inverted commas here. Now it's in our image folder, the IMG folder, and it's /, and it's actually prompting us for it. It's the logo.png there. And then I want to put a closing bracket at the end of there. Now if I mouse over that, that should actually show us that logo now. There it is. And save, Control S, back to the website, just get that one out of the way. Now when we refresh, our logo should appear here. There it is, it's there. We're going to need to adjust the position of it a little bit. But there's a few things I want to do here. I want to make this background white because we'll have a nice image in the what they call the hero section down here. I want to push these over to the right so that the logo stands out a little bit more. And then we'll decorate these as well, make them a little more interesting. So let's inspect this once again. And we're looking for Navbar brand. That's the actual image itself. There's the Navbar brand. As you can see, it sort of highlights the space that it's supposed to be in. And Navbar brand. Let's make it a little taller for a start. Let's try 80 pixels perhaps. Like I say, it doesn't matter what you do here because it's non-destructive. You can always undo it later. Okay, that may be a bit too much. We're also going to have to push that logo up a little bit. Let's call it 70 pixels. That will probably work. And that padding, let's see, you can uncheck it just to take it off there to see what's going to happen. That's going to be a little closer. So with padding, the first entry right there is top and bottom, so it's got 15 pixels at top, 15 pixels at bottom. Second one is right to left. You can do individuals, so it'd be top, right, bottom, and left. But when it's only two entries, it's top and bottom, left and right. So the padding top and bottom, I'm going to set that to 0. We'll keep the left and right, I believe. And as you can see, that's pretty much where we want that thing. You can make this a little bit bigger if you want to. So let's just copy this and put it into our empty notepad we've been using. Remember, from the dot to the closing curly bracket. Or if you've just done one, you can actually just from the dot and the one, just remember to put that closing curly bracket on there, should you need to. So let's pull this over, don't need that. Let's paste our new text in there. Didn't change the float, that can go. Did change the height, did change the padding, didn't change the font size or the line height, so that can stay. Alright, so next thing we're going to want to do is push this over to the right hand side here. So let's just select it. And that should be actually the Navbar nav, I believe. Try that there. And it should have a float element that's pushing it over to the left there. We want to change that to right. There it is right there. See, if we take that off, it doesn't do a lot. Let's just change it to right. And as you can see, that's pushed it over this side here. So let's again copy this from the dot. We don't need that at media min width because that is actually what they call a media query. It's telling it to do something when a screen size has a minimum width of 768. So we just need from the dot, which is as usual, to the closing curly bracket. Control C. I pasted it in there and we didn't change that margin attribute, so let's get rid of that one. Okay, let's see, what do we want to do next? I want to change the background color to this, and we're going to have to push this down slightly so it's more central. So let's do the background color first. Let's just click on that area right there, and it should be, I think it's navbar default probably. That looks like, in fact that is it right there. And is that our background color right there? Navbar default. Just uncheck it and it should take that color away. That's fine. So I want it white, which is hashtag hexadecimal FFF. It's actually 6 Fs, FFF, FFF, but when it's 6 of the same, you just need to put 3 in with HTML5. So that's changed that to white now. And again, of course, you can have it any color you want. If you want it to be red, put in red. As you can see, it's turned it red. If you want it to be transparent, just put in transparent. And you can't really tell there, but you may ask yourself, well, why would you want it to be transparent? Well, if you've got a nice background image here in your hero section and you want it to go all the way to the top, then you're going to want to have a transparent. If I scroll up now, you see that scrolling. You can still see that scrolling as it's going up. You know, the word scrolling, and you can see through it. But let's put it back to white. Stay on target here. So that's hashtag FFF, hexadecimal. Now if I do it, that scrolling will disappear because it's actually white and not transparent. Okay, so again, we'll just copy what we've changed here from the dot to the ending curly bracket. Put it in our little notepad. You can put this straight in your style sheet if you want to. This is just the way I do it because I do tend to do quite a few edits at one time. Border color, we'll leave that because we didn't change it. Just delete that. Okay, so we really want to move these a little bit down because they're not really central, so they look a little out of place there. So let's select that. And again, if you selected the wrong thing, just roll up and down here with your mouse until you get the correct thing that you want. In this case, it's probably just the nav on its own. So look here. Yeah, it's probably just a nav right there. You see this blue line when I've got it selected, it's selected all of them there. So here it is. And what I want to do is add a bit more padding to the top, just to push it down. So just click after any entry and it'll put a new line in there for you. I'm going to write padding, top, colon. Let's try, I don't know, 15 pixels. That should push it down by a little ways. Yeah, that's pushed it down. Let's push it down a little far. Let's try maybe 12. It's almost there. Maybe I think 10 might even be perfect. Let's have a look. Yeah, that'll work. 10. So I'm going to stick with 10 there. Again, copy from the dot to the ending bracket and put it into our little notepad here. Again, don't worry about copying this CSS here because I'll put it in a PDF file below, and you're welcome to download it and use it on your site if you're following along, or use whatever you want, how you want. Okay, the only thing we changed there was the padding. So we got those kind of where we want them. And if we scroll down the site here, when it gets to a new section, you're seeing it's highlighting there. I want to change this so it's just got a nice little red line underneath the one rather than that there. If you want to change that, just inspect it there. It's going to be the anchor. There's a little box here. You see where it says HOV over here? You click on that, hit the active tab. It should show you the CSS for the active link. which is the one we're on at the moment, then you have to scroll down and get the color. It's actually the focus one. That's what it's, yeah, that's it. So again, if you wanted that to be red, or I'm just using red here as an example, I guess my logo is red, then it'll do that. Now every time we scroll, that will be red. But we don't want to do that. I've got a different idea in mind for the decoration for the nav links. So before we do that, let's save the CSS that we've got already and put it into our style sheet. If I just refresh this page now, it should go back to how it was, as you see. And let's copy over the CSS that we've pasted into our little notepad here. Make sure to select everything, because if you miss one of those little dots off, it won't work. So copy that back to our brackets, down at the bottom where we left off, and paste it in there. There we have it. Let's do a quick save, Control S. Now when we refresh this site, hopefully that'll change white, that'll center itself. These will be over here in the center. There we go. Just click that, get it back up the top. That's fine. So let's start on activating these links or decorating these links. Like I said before, I want a nice little red line underneath each of these when we're active. So let's just scroll down and select that when it's active. And here we have it right here. I want to change the background color to transparent. And I want to give it a border on the bottom. I've got a nice red color that I've copied, which is the same as my logo there. So I'm just going to copy that. And I'm going to add an attribute, border bottom. And colon, and we're going to make it, say, 3 pixels maybe. 3 pixels solid. So it's solid rather than dashed, and as you can see, it's already put one up there. Now I just need to add my color, which I just copied. There we go, same as my logo. So now it's got that little red line there. And we'll just, as usual, copy that. And I'll put it down under. In fact, I'll delete this because we don't need it. Like I said before, I'll put a PDF of all this CSS, a link to it below this video here, so you've got it all should you want to use it. Okay, so we'll do that now. When we scroll to each section, see that little line goes across there. I'd kind of like to see that red as well, the writing red when it's active. So it's active now. Let's inspect it again. And that's the color right there. So if I use this red color that I've used it before on the bottom border there, let's just make that this color. So I'm just going to copy that, left click on there and paste that in there. Now you see that's red now. Now when we scroll down, it changes red each time. Now I don't need to copy that again because we've already got it. So I'm just going to copy this color and replace the color that they've got there. Making sure, of course, you've got that semicolon on the end, because if you've got more than one attribute, it won't work if you don't have that. Okay, so we're happy with that. What else do we want to do to it? We're almost there. Okay, also, how about, I'd like when we hover on it to have the same effect. So it's got a red line and a red text when we hover on it. So let's just select one. That's fine. And this little hover box here, you see it right here, hover. Select that so it drops down. Check the hover box. And there it's saying the colour. See, I want the colour to be that nice red colour I had just now. So let's paste that in there. Okay, so now when I hover over it, it'll change that colour. But I also want that border. So I'll just copy. I'm just going to copy the same thing rather than type it out again. You're welcome to type it out again if you want to. I'm not going to take that semicolon because there'll be already one there. So let's just copy that underneath, paste it in there. Now when we hover over, we've got a nice line. Okay, and I see one more little thing I'd like to do. I'll show you in just a minute, but let's just copy this, top of the dot to the end of the curly bracket there. I just pasted it in my notepad there. This time it's on the list item, it's on the actual anchor, whereas before we were on the anchor but not under the list item, we were on the active anchor. Okay, I'm pretty sure you know what I'm going to say. Now when we're hovering over this, this is great. Let's just uncheck this hover for a moment. It's great, but you've got your active one there, and if I mouse over the one next door to it, looks like it's one constant line between the two. I want to make a break in that line there so it looks like two separate items. And I can achieve that by giving this a margin just to the right of say 2 or 3 pixels to just give it a little bit of separation. So if we go to, should be able to just go to one of these again, and I don't want an active one, I just want a regular one. So I'm just going to give it a margin right. You can do left if you want to, it doesn't matter, just as long as the one side will give them a bit of separation. So margin right, and I'll give it, say, well, that line's 3 pixels, let's give it 3 pixels. It'll spread them out just a slight little bit more. But now when we do the active and hover over one next door to it, there should be a little gap in between. See, there we go. See, now it looks like 2 separate things. So again, we'll just copy that. We actually don't need all of it, so I'm just going to copy that and the little bit that we did, the margin right there. Drag our little text file over, drop down. And can you remember what I said before? Really important, always make sure you've got a closing curly bracket after it, or it will not work. It will not read it. Like I say, you could have copied the whole thing and deleted the parts that you didn't want. Even if you didn't delete them, it would still work, but it's a good idea to keep this as minimal as possible, as your browser, it gives it less to read and your site will react better to it. So I'm fairly happy with that. Let's copy this over to our style sheet. There we are, I've just pasted it in there after our last session, and we'll do a quick save. Control S. Back to the site. Get that one out of the way. Let's close the inspector and do a refresh. Bring it back up to the top and do a refresh. It should now actually stay how we want it. There we are. Let's try our about section. Our hover's working fine. The text and the border is changing. Let's scroll to a section. Active links seem to be working okay. And as you can see, we've got a little separation in between the two there, which is what we wanted. So that's it really for this video. In the next video, we'll start working on the hero section here. So once again, this has been Jamie from System22 and GreatWebDesign.com. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel. I'll see you in the next video.